Winning Blueprint presents.
It's the Redskins Report, so it's everything Redskins and anything of the sort. The 2012 Washington Redskins, your NFC East champions, the Redskins Report.
Welcome, this is the Redskins Report. I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me. I'm back. And I have plenty of good news today. I'm in good spirits. Got Fred Davis back last week. And here we are this week getting another veteran on this football team back in the form of D'Angelo Hall. Now, can't say I didn't see this one coming. However, I didn't know that the Redskins had been in talks with him this whole time. Now, I did hear rumblings of him possibly being back. I actually sat in on a conversation between the Redskins blogger and insider Rich Tandler. He was having a Twitter opening to the masses, and I just sat in. I didn't ask him anything. I just sat and looked at some of the questions that others were asking him. And one of the questions asked of him was, who did he think would be the starters for the opening day of the season in the 2013 season for the Redskins in the secondary? And his response was Wilson, Hall, Merriweather, and then he threw out some random name at safety. And I looked at it and I'm like, did he just say Hall? And so once I saw that, I started to go and do research. I started digging, and I found out that, in fact, the Redskins were in talks with D'Angelo Hall and that there was a great possibility that he might be back in Washington. And voila, here he is. 1 year, $2.25 million deal. D'Angelo Hall is back in the fold. Solid move for the Redskins. I never wanted him to go in the first place, so this one is a really good move in my estimation. He needed to go because of the amount of money he was making. The Redskins not only saved themselves $8 million on the cap this year, but even next year in 2014, he was slated to make $9.5 million and count against the cap. And so we're talking about a total of $17.5 million in 2 seasons the Redskins just saved by getting rid of D'Angelo Hall this offseason. And so I have absolutely no qualms about what they were able to do with him. Bringing him back, solid move, because, again, you know how I feel about continuity. I'm all for it. You know, I want every guy back that I can get back that matters on this football team. I feel like D'Angelo Hall is a solid piece. Was he great in 2012? No. But who was in this secondary? Who was great on this defense, for that matter, in 2012? I mean, everyone had their moments. Guys were solid, but no one really stood out on this defense. There was not one guy that you looked at and said, man, that guy right there should be in the top 10 at his position in the National Football League on our defense. We don't have not one guy that you can say that about. And so everyone had their moments. D'Angelo Hall is no different in that regard. And so glad to have him back. It gives us more versatility, more depth at the cornerback position. Lord knows we need it. And so this question now needs to be asked, and it begs to be asked. Are the Redskins still in play for Antoine Winfield? You get D'Angelo Hall back, and all of a sudden now the amount of money you have under the cap starts to dwindle. You go out, you get Fred Davis. back. You go out, you get D'Angelo Hall back. The Redskins are talking about signing Pat White. We'll talk about that here in a second. So how much money do the Redskins actually have under the cap? Now, after D'Angelo Hall actually signs his deal, the Redskins will actually be technically $1 million over the cap. So once again, we will be over that threshold. But trust me, again, I never worry about the numbers. I never worry about the cap with our guys. They always find a way to get it done. They dance around the numbers. I say it all the time. I don't worry about the numbers with the Redskins. They'll get it done. They'll figure out a way to restructure some deals and make this number dance around the cap, and we'll be fine. And so I don't worry about the Redskins and their contractual situations or the cap. They'll find a way to take care of it. And so, yeah, we're going to be over the cap once D'Angelo Hall officially signs his deal, but they'll restructure some deals. And you don't want to restructure a lot of deals because you don't want to start allocating money to future years. You don't want to start backloading contracts and start putting huge amounts of stress on your cap situation down the road. You don't want to do that. The Redskins really aren't big fans of restructuring deals, but you got to do what you got to do when you're in this type of situation. You know, desperate times call for desperate measures, and this is in fact a desperate time for the Redskins. This second consecutive season of an $18 million cap hit really has put the Redskins in a very tough situation, put them in between a rock and a hard place. And so desperate times call for desperate measures. Redskins having to do some things that they don't like to do. And that's what you have to do sometimes when you get in a tough situation. You got to do some things that you normally under normal circumstances wouldn't do. But the Redskins will have to make some more moves. But the Redskins are still going to be in play for Antoine Winfield. And I'm hearing that he's actually thrilled that the Redskins got D'Angelo Hall back. He feels like it's a great move for the Redskins. And I feel like, and I've said this before, that he feels like at this point in his career, and I'm speaking of Antoine Winfield, he wants to win. And look, the guy's 35 years old. He's been in the league, 13, 14 seasons. We're past the point of just getting a contract. This next move that he makes, wherever it is, if it's back to Minnesota or it's to the Redskins, it's because he feels like this team gives him the best opportunity to win. Of course, in conjunction with the green matching up to where he feels like he can win. I want to be paid for my services, but I also want to have a chance to win. And at this latter stage of his career, that's exactly what he's looking for, a good combination of money and a chance to win. And so signing D'Angelo Hall back gives you a better opportunity to win. And if Antoine Winfield were, in fact, to come join the Redskins, he'd be in a slot. And that's a great spot for him. Again, a very diminutive but feisty and physical corner in the slot always bodes well for you. Getting in the face of receivers and sticking to them and really making it hard for them to get off the line of scrimmage and being a short tackler. The one thing you want a guy in the slot to do is be a great tackler, because when you're in the slot, you're in space. And sometimes if you don't make that tackle, big gains are had in the slot. And Antoine Winfield is one of the best, if not the best, tackling corner in the National Football League. And so I think that would be a great fit for the Redskins. And he is still in play, definitely still in play in D.C. And so, again, I'll be looking to see what the Redskins do on that front. But D'Angelo Hall is back. Antoine Winfield still in play in D.C. And so this free agency period for the Redskins, this offseason has shaped up to be one that has been very surprising. I mean, I am so impressed with what the Redskins have been able to do in free agency. And you look at it from the outside looking in, and on the surface, you look at it and you say, well, look, you didn't do anything but just re-sign your own guys. Yeah, you went out and got a guy like E.J. Biggers or Tony Pashos or Jeremy Trueblood, but for the most part, you went out and re-signed your own guys, and the guys I just named, who are they? I mean, most Lay fans have no idea who any of those guys are, and it's perfectly fine, because what this offseason has said to me is that they get it in Washington. Our front office, they get it. And not only do they get it, but they know what they're doing. I mean, to have this cap penalty levied down on them and dance around the figures the way they have, find a way to get all of your guys back with the exception of one, find a way to not cave in to Fred Davis or to D'Angelo Hall, make some tough decisions, ultimately getting those guys back, which is what you wanted to do in the first place all along. And so you've been able to really find a way to finagle this whole offseason and get all of the guys that you wanted back on your roster. Essentially, the team is intact from the 2012 NFC East Championship football team. It's intact. Now you go out, you add a few pieces through the draft, you add a couple of free agents, and this team could be even better. You get a guy like Arakpo back from injury. You get Adam Carricker back from injury, we hope. And this team could be right back in the mix in the 2013 season and be even better, 1 year better. So you got to love what this franchise has been able to do. You got to love what we've been able to do this offseason. Kudos to the Redskins front office. One more quick order of business and then we'll get out of here. Pat White. Remember Pat White? West Virginia quarterback, very athletic. Not the best thrower of the football, but he can throw the football. Very athletic, can run around, make some plays with his legs. Remember that guy, second round pick of the Miami Dolphins? Yeah, that guy. He's now a Washington Redskin. That's right. The Redskins have reached an agreement with Pat White. Terms of that agreement have not been disclosed yet. This is basically breaking news as I'm saying it to you right now. It just happened literally 10 minutes ago. It's fresh off of the wire. And I tell you what, solid move by the Redskins. And before you go allowing this move to send your brain racing, let me stop you right now, right in your tracks. Don't overthink this move. And what I mean by that is, don't look at this move and say, well, what does this mean for Robert Griffin III? What does this mean for Kirk Cousins? What does this mean for the Redskins quarterback situation? Stop. Pump your brakes. This means absolutely nothing to Robert Griffin III. Let's start that first and foremost. And I'm pretty sure you all know that. I don't have to explain that to you. This means absolutely nothing to him. So let's talk about Kirk Cousins, because a lot of you might think, well, maybe Pat White is a better fit for the read option offense, and that means that the Redskins are going to look to trade Kirk Cousins. No, that's not what this means. One, let's start with this. He was slated to meet with the Giants to see if the Giants could sign him. He was going to work out for them, and the Giants were probably going to offer him a deal. And the Giants simply wanted him for no other reason than to have him on their practice squad, be on their roster so that when they play teams that run the read option like the Redskins, he'll be the guy that plays Robert Griffin III in practice and gives them a general idea of what they need to do to stop us. So that's one thing that the Redskins wanted to defend against, stopping the Giants from getting their hands on a guy that could mimic Robert Griffin III. So that's one reason. Reason number two, Pat White is a guy that can come in, and Robert Griffin III is injured. Let's not forget. You need camp arms. And to run your camp efficiently, and the way most camps do it around the league, is that you need three minimum. You really need four quarterbacks to run your camp as smoothly as you want it to go. And so Pat White offers another arm in camp. He's athletic, and he allows the Redskins to still run somewhat of that read option offense while Robert Griffin III is on the mend. So he gives you that look in practice, still allows the offense to practice and go through the motions, more so than Kirk Cousins will. And so that's another dimension that he adds to our team. So you look at it from that aspect, and that's another thing that Pat White adds to the table. And then thirdly, all last year, the Redskins carried three quarterbacks on the roster. Now, on game days, there was only two quarterbacks active. But all season long, we carried three quarterbacks. Robert Griffin III, Kirk Cousins, Rex Grossman. Rex Grossman is no longer under contract with the Washington Redskins, but he'll be back. We'll use him as a camp arm if nothing else. And most likely he'll make the roster because, again, Robert Griffin III is injured. Pat White comes in, and now you have three quarterbacks if you get Rex Grossman back, Pat White's in the mix, and then you got Kirk Cousins. You got 3 guys to run your camp. So there's another reason why Pat White will be figured to be in the mix is because if the Redskins do indeed decide to keep 3 quarterbacks again, and they might have to start the season without Robert Griffin III. We don't know yet. Right now, all indications point to him being ready to start the season, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. So let's just go under the assumption and with the hypothetical that he's not ready to go week 1. You need 3 quarterbacks on your roster. Let's say the Redskins decide to keep 3 quarterbacks. Of course, Robert Griffin III is going to be one of them. Then you're going to need 2 more. Do the Redskins want to keep Rex Grossman around? Who knows? Maybe they decide, instead of keeping Rex Grossman, to go the Pat White and Kirk Cousins route. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Either way, Kirk Cousins' job isn't in jeopardy. Neither is Robert Griffin III. Kirk Cousins is our backup. We trust him. We know what we have in Kirk Cousins. And so I don't see Pat White, who was a failed second-round experiment by the Miami Dolphins, coming in and unseating anyone in our franchise. It's not going to happen. He's more of an insurance policy. In case anything goes wrong with anyone, he's a guy that could still be a backup. Because even if something were to go wrong with Kirk Cousins, then Rex Grossman would step in. And then Pat White would be his backup. And you want to have guys that are familiar with your system so that if anything happens, you have guys that can step in. And so here's another guy in Pat White that can get familiar with the system, help us run our offense while Robert Griffin III is on the shelf. And so if nothing else, he provides that look for us offensively and for our defense, because there are going to be other teams around the league now that are going to mimic what we and Seattle and to a degree what the 49ers were able to do with this read option. And so you're going to get other teams around the league, and we know the NFL is a copycat league. You're going to get a lot of teams that are going to try to run read option in the 2013 season. It's going to be like the Wildcat. Everyone's going to do it. It's going to be all the rage. And then it's going to probably flame out because everyone's going to be doing it. And so every defense is going to have to prepare itself for it. And then teams are going to get wise as to how to stop it. Now, just because you know how to stop it doesn't mean you're going to go out and execute. Not every team has a Robert Griffin III. Not every team has a Russell Wilson. Not every team has a Colin Kaepernick. It looks much different when Robert Griffin III runs the read option, or Russell Wilson runs the read option, or Colin Kaepernick runs the read option. It looks much different when they run it than when a guy, say, like Christian Ponder runs the read option. And so you're much less afraid of Christian Ponder than you are of those 3 guys that I just named. And so any team can run their version of the read option. It may not be as successful as the other teams that run it with more athletic quarterbacks. So all in all, Pat White is going to join this football team. It's a good addition for the Redskins, especially with Robert Griffin III being down right now. It's a solid addition for the Redskins. Don't read too much into it, though. This doesn't mean Kirk Cousins is on the trading block. It doesn't mean that he's in jeopardy of not being the backup quarterback anymore. It means absolutely nothing other than Pat White is now a Washington Redskin. And just leave it at that. And that's it for this edition of the Redskins Report. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskin spirit will never die. My Redskin spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to the Redskins. Have a good one and continue to be on Antoine Winfield watch.
The Redskins Report.